Welcome back to Conspired, where skeptics and believers come together to discover the truth. Alright, so we're doing this episode on vacation down here in wonderful Charleston, South Carolina. And we decided this evening we are pretty much on our way. The tour doesn't start for another hour and 15 minutes, but we decided to come into downtown Charleston early just to, find a good parking spot and get ready for the haunted ghost tour. I guess that's kind of a redundant way to say it. A haunted ghost tour. Yeah, the haunted ghost tour should be fun. As we all know, I am the skeptic, and she is the believer. But before we get into that, we just want to thank everybody for listening. Go to iTunes, give us 5 stars, give us a review. If you don't like to type up a review, just hit the 5-star button. No problem. Makes it easy peasy. Yes, I said easy peasy. Is that a dad thing? Is that like kind of like a dad joke, but in another way?
That's definitely a dad joke.
See, definitely a dad joke. We wanted to talk about how we do have our friends I have a friend at work that is working on our logo, and we are hopefully going to be getting that logo soon. I think he said a couple weeks, maybe a few weeks. I don't want to rush him because I do want, a great looking logo. And we'd like to make some merchandise like t-shirts and stickers and whatever else we can think of. But not to make money off of it, but to actually get the word out and maybe have some contests where people can win stuff. Like we were thinking where you could win a t-shirt that says Conspired on it, has the logo, or doesn't say Conspired. The logo is Conspired. That's what it says. So, and you'd have like skeptic on the back of it or believer. I thought that was a good idea. She gives me a giggle. So that's either a I love it giggle or that's a you're a ridiculous person giggle. Yeah, the LOL. But we are in the middle of receiving MP3s, Wave, and Audacity files for the Your Creepiest Story. So you just record your creepiest story that you can think of or that you've experienced and send it in to conspired@gmail.com. That's CONSPEARED, just like the spear you throw, conspired. And we're going to look them over, and if we have enough that we like, we'll even do a follow-up episode probably later in the future. The length, I would say no more than a half hour. I don't know. I guess creepy stories can be very long. I don't see them being too long. I would say a half hour at most. Our episodes are no more than an hour and a half usually. I think we've had one that was maybe an hour and 40 minutes. We would like to have time. We're either going to play it all the way through and then talk about it at the end, or play it and then kind of stop in between and just talk about our thoughts on it. We haven't really decided yet. I kind of like the idea of stopping in between, so that way, we might hear something and want to talk about it and just be like, oh, this is interesting because of this. And,
But I like waiting till the end. And you can take notes if you need to do it in between. If you have something you want to say and you're worried about forgetting it.
Alright, well, yeah, that's another possibility. We could do it that way too. But, if you haven't already, check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, mainly on Twitter. Twitter's where I like to hang my hat. Talk to all the other podcasters out there. And that's where you can get to know us and learn more about what we're going to be having in the future. Was there anything else, like main topics that we talked about? Can't think. I can't stop it either. So, this is unedited, ladies and gentlemen. We have Natalie, yes, we're talking about Natalie here, in the car with me, and she is just distracting the crap out of me so that I cannot talk straight. But, is there anything else because I'm going to be sending this out unedited. And by the way, this Glenn Thinks Stuff, if you're listening, which I know you probably are, I am using your idea I listened to your bonus episode, how you said you started out your podcast by talking on your phone. And so we are using my iPhone to record this. Just, if you haven't listened to Glenn Thinks Stuff, I'll give him a little shout out. He's always giving me great ideas whenever I listen to his episodes. But I think that was the main thing we were going to talk about.
We're going on a ghost tour.
Yeah, we are going to go on a ghost tour. It's for Bulldogs.
Through Bulldog Tours.
Yeah, Bulldog Tours in Charleston, South Carolina. This is supposedly one of the most haunted places in the world.
Top 10 haunted cities in America. Look
Yeah, top 10 haunted cities in America.
Not like state, but city.
City, yes, not state. The most haunted state.
But aside from like the ghost, I mean, it's very historic. I mean,
that's everybody knows that's the reason that I came, is because of the history.
Everybody doesn't know that.
Oh, most of them do, especially if they've listened to our past episodes and they're like, oh yeah, Gerald's a skeptic, so he's going to be like there for the history, while Natalie's going to be there to see if she can catch a poltergeist on her camera. It's going to be an orb floating around. Maybe a couple of orbs floating around.
Maybe.
You never know. You never know. All right. Well,
we are thinking about getting some drinks after the tour and maybe going back to the places that we, toured.
Oh, go back to the cemetery. Yes, because that's the tour. The tour is going to be the cemetery.
It's mainly the cemetery. I've done this before, so I know. It's mainly the cemetery, but they do take you to some other places. So, I mean, there's other places we could go and kind of look at as well.
Okay. See, I didn't know this. I've only done the haunted jail tour with her, which we talked about in another episode.
That was, even if you didn't, think about it. I mean, the building itself is creepy looking.
Well, I think all old buildings are creepy.
Yeah, but that was a significantly old building.
Yeah. Right? And the stories themselves, like, if you listen to, I can't remember which episode, I think it was like 29 of Glenn Thinks Stuff, where he talked about the woman that was hung in the jail. And she said in the jail. She was hung at the gallows.
At the gallows.
Yeah.
But, that's a very famous story. Lavinia Fisher.
Yeah, Lavinia Fisher.
I know quite a bit about her.
Yeah, she told everybody that if you have anything to, tell the devil, tell me now, because that's pretty much where she's going. That's not word for word, but, so we are going to...
Pee. I gotta pee.
All right, well, after you get done doing that, we still have another hour till the tour.
We're going to go to the sweet shop.
Oh, yeah, we're going to go to the sweet shop, get some sweets, and then go on the tour. So this will be...
we might go drink afterwards, so we'll see.
This will be bonus, 15A, and then we'll record from the...
When we get back to our hotel, we'll come back and we'll recap experiences and I'm not gonna say I'm gonna have an experience, but
yes, she will.
We'll recap the stories and just overall what the tour was like. If any of you come to visit and would like to do it, we can tell you if it's worth your money, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
we'll just reflect on our evening.
Exactly. So this is just bonus 1 of 2. And we'll
see you after the tour.
See you after the tour.
Or talk to you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so the tour's over, and it was interesting. I mean, I'll give it that.
It was great.
It was great, yeah. It was great.
I liked it.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed certain aspects of it. And I did get a few good laughs out of like the stories they would tell.
You told me several times, and I know we have it recorded because he, while we were on the tour, had his phone out and, well, not out, but like had it in his pocket and was kind of recording what the tour guide was kind of saying and kind of had our like candid reactions to some of the things he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I know that on that recording at one point you said, okay, I'll admit the picture is compelling. Like, I mean, of course, you still explain it away with, I don't remember how.
Of course,
Well,
the pictures are compelling.
I shouldn't say, before we even talk about that, we should talk about go in chronological
I was going to say, that would be a lot easier.
Know what we're talking about.
Because you got to remember, after we record this, we have to take it back home and edit it with all the parts that are recorded.
Right. But I do want to say, what I was saying by that was that there were parts of it that you did find were compelling and interesting. And
yeah, I will never say that I don't find something interesting. I like horror stories.
No, like left gaps in your mind. Like, okay, I don't immediately know how to explain this. That kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it takes research to find out, to be able to debunk something. It's not like I can just say, oh, yeah, you're right. That's compelling.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just saying, like, initially you weren't like, oh, well, that's this such and such. Like,
well, you told me to go in with an open mind.
Yeah, well, the tour guide told you that, too.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? He told us to go in with an open mind. So I went in with an open mind, like he said. And you were worried the whole time that I was going to say something to the tour guide.
Well, because I know how you are, and I didn't want you to, like, ruin it for the other people.
And that's what I told you. Whenever we were on the tour, you were like, please don't. And I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not. Everybody's here. Most of them are probably here for, ghosts.
No, I saw people laughing. I mean.
Yeah, there were people laughing, but I'm saying most of them were there for the ghost tour. They wanted to really see something. And I don't want to ruin things for people. I mean, it's fun ruining it for you, but
yeah.
And if anybody sends us any creepy stories in for our next episode, I'm gonna ruin it for them. I should just leave this running because our banter is even better than the tour. Because you're like, take it seriously. This is serious. There's ghosts.
Just don't be like offensive.
I haven't said anything to him.
I know that. I'm trying to keep it that way.
I'm being cordial. I'm not going to say anything on the tour. Like, 3/4 of these people believe in, and I would be attacked completely. Do you think I want that? No, exactly.
I don't know.
I'm not dumb.
Sometimes you don't care.
Sometimes I don't, but these people are here to have fun. I'm not going to ruin their fun. I mean, I'm having fun. I like it.
You still liked there was a lot of history.
Yes. Well, you got to remember that I like the history, but not only the history, but the stories as well. Ghost stories are interesting. Whenever I was young and sit around the campfires, whenever we go camping, you listen to the ghost stories, and as a kid, you may believe them, or you may get to the end of the story, and then they say, I got you. That's not really, something that really happened, but
Sure.
It's just something to scare you. So, I mean,
yeah.
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
What was the first stop?
So I'll kind of, and maybe you can fill in the gaps with maybe if I'm leaving something pertinent out. But we started off, we met up, and then we went to the first location. And as a reminder, this was the Ghost and Graveyard tour, which means that the centerfold of this tour was the graveyard itself, the cemetery, which was St. Philip's Church, which is in downtown Charleston, if any of you know the area.
Did we go to 2 graveyards?
No, it was just one different. We went to different entrances of the same
it was a different entrance.
It's rather large, and it actually extends to the other side of the street as well. That's how large it is. But St. Philip's, there's a little sign. I think we already talked about this before, did we? The sign that was in there. St. Philip's doesn't really encourage the ghost tours because they have a sign up that says the only ghost at St. Philip's is the Holy Ghost.
Which goes to my point in previous episodes where I say Religious people even think, look, there are no ghosts. If you die, your soul goes to heaven or hell.
Well, we won't get into that, but...
Right, okay. Let's stick to the story.
I'm just saying...
But even the church believes it.
Well, like I said, I won't get into that because that's not the belief of all religions.
No, I'm not saying all. I'm saying this church.
This particular church, yeah.
If you want to put particular in there, we'll say particular church.
Like I said. But anyway, so we get there, and one of the stories, and I know we're probably going to embed some of this so that we don't have to say word for word the stories.
Yeah, we're not going to tell.
I don't want to retell all the stories. That's not.
I say we tell what we like the most, and then we add it later.
Sure. So my favorite parts of this tour, and I've done this tour 2 times in the past, and I told him when we were on it, the best part about it is that I hear a new story every time I do it, because the tour guide's different, and the tour guide has his or her own personal experiences and things that have happened on the tour, and of course this tour was similar to that. Yes, there were some stories I'd heard before, but there were also some new ones. I turned to him and said, I've never heard that story before.
And you were worried about this guy because you were like, oh man, I hope we get the first tour guide. Yeah, he was really interesting when he came out and got us.
There was 2 charismatic tour guides, and then we kind of got the older guy at the end.
I thought he was a mailman. Really boring. He dressed like a mailman. Like he had the pouch.
He looked like he was on a safari to me.
Yeah, a safari mailman. Like he was delivering mail to
the
Jungle Book characters.
We stopped at this graveyard. And at this graveyard, St. Philip's Church, he was talking about how a couple years ago he had this man and woman couple on a tour, and that they had worries, that day before they came on the tour were kind of like exploring downtown Charleston, and really wanted to get inside the cemetery to take pictures. They felt like drawn to it. And they found that the gate was open, which was really out of the ordinary because they generally keep the gate locked. The church does. But they were able to get in. And they both went off their separate ways exploring. And the lady said she felt compelled to go to this one particular grave. And she said when she got to the grave, she felt like immediate sadness, like heartbreak, to the point where she was crying. And all of a sudden, she said that she felt this icy, cold hand come over her shoulder. And she turned around, and of course no one was there, and her husband came running back. And I don't remember exactly what order this happened in, but the couple also saw a woman crying on the side of the building. So, that night, after having that experience, they decided to go on a ghost tour. And they chose this one, and lo and behold, part of the ghost tour was the graveyard. And the tour guide started telling them about this historical story that our tour guide also told us, that there was this photographer in the 80s who was taking pictures of the cemetery.
Yeah, they said he was reaching through the gate.
They said he couldn't get in the gate because it was locked, so he stuck his hand through the hole and took a picture of one particular gravestone. And when he got it developed, it was a picture of this, what appeared to be this apparition of a woman named Sue Howard Hardy, and she was crying it looked like she was crying over this grave. And when the tour guide on the man and woman's tour told them that, the woman lost it because that was the grave she had felt drawn to.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, very interesting. But behind that story, that woman, who that supposedly is a woman who lost her child. It was a stillborn, and the grave she's crying over is the grave of her stillborn, and she's buried right next to the baby. And so they say that's one of the ghosts that haunts the cemetery. But that picture in particular is a rather famous picture nationwide even. I've seen it on several television shows, because the thing was, and this was the thing we were talking about the picture earlier, it was not, this is the 80s, and there's only so many ways you can manipulate a photograph, especially number one in the 80s, number two in pitch darkness. There's no street lights out or anything. And he even sent the picture to Kodak, I think at the time, and Kodak sent it even further off, and none of them were able to debunk and figure out what it was. They just said it is, take it at face value. It is what you see. Like, it was something. So that's why it became so famous. And of course, the guy showed us the picture, and of course, I'm very familiar with it. And if you are interested in seeing it, I just typed it in Google. Just type in Charleston ghost picture. It's the first one that comes up. And it's like an image of a woman kneeling over a grave. But yeah, so that was the first stop we made on the tour.
All right, my thoughts on it are, he showed the pictures. And, you know, the couple that went there, they could have, for one thing, for the skeptics out there, you know, the couple could have made it up. They could have said that they walked by there and it was unlocked. You said usually it's not unlocked. So, could have been unlocked, could have went in there. I doubt it. But they go in there, and some people just drawn to having... Hold on, let me finish. Okay. Yeah, I let you talk the whole time. I was just like, sat here patiently.
I was just telling what happened. I wasn't telling my opinion.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell mine and then you tell yours. Because you always lose your thought on what you think of.
I'm going to forget. I need to write it down.
And so, that's that. The picture that they show you on the ghost tour is like a see-through, tan-looking... I don't know, half. Well, you'll still see the picture. You look at the picture, and you can see it's see-through and everything. And then they try to say that there's a face of a baby in the silhouette of the apparition. And I didn't see it. Natalie said she did see it.
But I had never seen that before.
She's never seen it before.
Yeah, I've seen that picture several
But everybody knows that you could say, your mind automatically pieces things together. Like, whenever you look at a rock, you know, like those big rocks, and some people call it like, I don't know, say there's a wolf rock or something like that, you know, Wolf Mountain, and it's in the shape of a wolf's head or something like that. You just piece it together. It's not really in the shape of a wolf's head. You just see it like that. And so whenever you're looking at these pictures... If he tells you, what do you see, and you're like, I don't know, and then he says, well, see right there, this is what it is, then your mind's eye kind of puts the pieces together and lets you see what he's telling you to see.
And I thought that was a bit of a stretch, too. I mean, I don't really...
It was a huge stretch.
I think that was... I mean, the woman is clear as day to me, but...
See, to me, if nobody told me that it was a woman bidding... If he wouldn't have told the story first...
What would you have thought it was, then?
Well, you got to remember, this is the 80s, and they're taking pictures at night with no lights. So there's the flash on the camera that could cause anything. I was thinking double exposure at first. But mine is mostly the lighting. Like, there has to be some kind of lighting going on. She just pulled up the picture now so I can take a look at it again.
I think that's the original.
Yeah, that's the original. And there is lighting. They said there's not lighting, but I could tell. I used to be somewhat of a photographer, and I could tell that there's lighting by the walls of the church are brighter than where the trees are. The trees are like what's the word for the? It's like silhouetted. No, that's not the word. Anyway, it shows them as darker, and so the different lightness and darkness in the picture. I see what it is, but I can't say that that's a woman. I mean...
Yeah, you can't say it, but the thing is, and even if that's not what it is, like, who knows what it is? I mean, but I think the fact that the guy who took it was a professional photographer, and he didn't want his pictures to be ruined. Like, he wasn't out looking for ghosts. He was out trying to take pictures.
Nobody tries to ruin their own photos, but it takes a lot of pictures to get a good picture. Every photographer will tell you that. You can't just get a perfect picture the first time.
Was the guy... It's not like he was a ghost hunter photographer.
No, I know he was.
Like, and he got this picture, and he was like, what is this? And like he wasn't out trying to get ghost pictures, right? He was out getting scenic Charleston pictures. And I just think it's really odd that he was like trying to get the thing out of the picture and like trying to figure out like, what is this? Like, blah, blah, blah.
My thing is why was he taking pictures of a graveyard at night with no lights? Most photographers go around, if they want to do night photography, they'll go around and they'll either use a long exposure or they'll find a little bit of light, whether it be moonlight or maybe a lamp light, some kind of lighting, because your photographs don't come out very well.
Flash, right?
Well, he he said he reached through the gates to take the pictures.
He stuck his camera through.
Right, so he's just reaching through. He can't put his eye up to the lens.
He can't even see what he's taking.
Right, he can't see what he's taking. So, to me, photographers usually want to make sure that their pictures are going to be, exposed correctly. Not have fuzziness or out of focus, anything like that.
I don't know. As famous as the picture is,
it's famous for a reason.
It's famous for a reason, and obviously I've read a lot on it, and I read a lot on it right after the tour as well. There's been a lot of people who have attempted to debunk it, and were not able to. They're not saying that, yes, this is a woman. They're saying that whatever is in that picture...
It's in that picture.
It's in the picture.
I'm not saying it's not in the picture. It is in the picture.
Yeah.
But it could be, like I said, I think it's a lighting issue. But that's just my thought. I'm not, somebody who's an expert on this stuff. If I brought somebody in that was, then maybe they could help us out. But that's just my thoughts. So
if you guys have been to Charleston, or if not, go ahead, and if you have access to the internet and listening to this, go ahead and type in Charleston ghost picture, and it should be a picture of a graveyard and the apparition of a woman kneeling over a grave, and send us your thoughts. That's what any site will tell you that.
Yeah, the site's going to tell you that, but don't look at it as that. Just look at it as a picture that somebody stuck their camera through and took a picture. And you've already been, programmed to say this is going to be a picture of a woman, because as soon as he handed it to me, I saw a picture of a woman. But I'm also raised in a Baptist church all my life, and so, you see, who's the, Jesus' mother, Mary? Well, no, Magdalene is the one
Mary Magdalene's not his mother.
Right, not his mother. I wasn't thinking of his mother.
She was a follower.
The follower. Mary Magdalene is kind of bent over at the stone, the entrance.
Washing his feet.
Yeah, and so, and it kind of looks like that from behind. Like it's from the, 300 AD. No, it would be 300. It'd be 29 AD. But anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this image of this woman kneeling in prayer. Notice how you can see through her?
Wow.
You don't see that all the time at your house, right? I'm always looking for a good road trip. Oh, she does.
She does, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Woman on the toilet. See through her.
Right there, that woman. And she's kneeling in prayer in front of that grave.
We talking
Notice
about
how you can see through her?
It's a joke.
That's nuts, isn't it?
About what?
There's a woman kneeling at a grave. So what would be funnier than a woman that you see through sitting on the toilet in your bathroom?
Okay.
Let's move on to the next site. What did we went to the back part of the graveyard next?
We went to the back part of the graveyard. There wasn't really much that went on there. At that point, we were allowed to... He just told us kind of like historically that there were...
he showed us another picture.
Actually, thousands of graves buried in that one spot, like on top of each other. And the reason is because it was during the Civil War, and there wasn't a lot of room essentially. And so there's a lot of unmarked graves. Mm-hmm. Like we were standing on like a little grass pond, and like underneath is like thousands of like bodies, and we're like, oh my gosh. But there's a lot of them that are marked.
She was extremely scared.
The gravestones are, of course, very old. They haven't been, tampered with at all. Another interesting thing he told us is that a lot of the graves are buried above the ground. And I had done this tour before, and I had thought, because I know there was a story before I had been on, I had thought that was because there was a fear of being buried alive, and I know that was a thing.
I thought it was because of the water.
I remember that.
I thought it was because close to the beach.
Yeah, it turns out it wasn't either one of those. It turned out that they used to bury families on
together.
Top of each other.
Yes.
Which is really, really weird.
It was because there was a lot of deaths all happening at once.
Yellow
fever, yes. And the yellow fever, they were just dying by the...
Dozens.
Well, more than that, thousands.
He said something a year. I don't remember what the exact detail was.
So whole families were being buried together.
So disease, epidemics of smallpox or malaria, or especially yellow fever, which often killed whole families at once. And that's the reason for the raised graves. They literally have multiple family members buried.
So anyway,
it was fun. I love taking the pictures. We'll put some pictures
and it
on
gave
Twitter
us
so that you can check us out.
2.5 minutes to take pictures, and I posted something. There's one that I'm kind of questioning. Is there something in it?
She's like, look at this. Here's one. And then I flipped to the next one. I was like, look, there's an orb in this one.
But mostly they're just of Gerald being ridiculous.
Yes.
And so
I'll post them on Facebook.
They were interesting. But then after we left the graveyard, the next part was actually my favorite part of the tour. We went to kind of like a park area where there were a lot of benches, and we sat down and we found out that the place where we were used to be the gallows, or one of the gallows in Charleston. And if you don't know, gallows are the place where they would hang people. And right next
just randomly?
Yeah. And right next to it, the place was the old
courthouse.
The courthouse.
Yeah.
And then a couple blocks away was the jailhouse, which we did last summer.
Right.
But in particular, this whole experience was talking about the ghost or the haunting or the legend of Lavinia Fisher. And I know...
Which we've talked about
We've talked about her before.
So we don't need to go too much detail.
We're not going to go into too much detail. But basically, she was the world's... I'm definitely not going... She was not the world's, but
United States.
First female serial killer in the United States, allegedly.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of telling us about how... And you kind of have to tell this last part or else the ghost sightings don't really make sense.
They don't make sense anyway.
Whatever. So Lavinia was arrested, and she and her husband were kept in the jail for quite some time. When her and her husband went to trial, they sentenced them both to be hanged. And Lavinia...
That was hung.
No, hanged.
It's hanged?
It's hanged, yes.
Well, you're the teacher. You know. I take your
I
word.
hope I'm right. But anyway, sentenced them both to be hanged, and then Lavinia kind of stood up and said, well, wait, you can't hang married women. And the judge said, you're right. That's why we're going to hang your husband first.
Oh, yeah.
And so...
Right. I forgot that he said that.
So after they hanged her husband, it was Lavinia's turn, and she had requested to be hanged in a wedding gown. And the reason is because she was hoping that... Because she was a rather attractive woman. She was hoping that some man in the audience... Well, that's what it was. They were going to watch. Was going to fall in love with her and marry her on the spot. So and then she wouldn't be able to be killed. But that didn't happen. And when she realized that wasn't going to happen, they started tying the noose around her neck, and they asked her, do you have any last words? And she said, yes. If anyone has a message for the devil, give it to me now, for I'll be seeing him soon. And there's different takes on that, but it was something to that effect.
They say it.
And then she was hanged there.
And I'm pretty sure it's hung, but we're going to keep going hanged.
But anyway, and so our tour guide was telling us about how there have been different sightings of Lavinia in that spot. The first he told us about were some construction workers who worked in the place that used to be the courthouse, and how they would constantly see a woman down the hallways in a white gown with black hair, kind of floating toward them and then disappearing from sight. He also told us about there was a young couple who were in the park supposedly, and then they came a police officer saw them come running out of the park, screaming. The police officer ran up to the girl and said, what's wrong? And she said, the woman. And the police officer, kind of went back to the park to find out if there was anything was going on, and he supposedly saw a woman in a long gown with black hair in the corner of the little parkway, and we'll post a picture because it is hard to kind of describe. It's like I don't know. The sightings of Lavinia are most common in this place because this is where she was hanged, and he also told us about a boy that was on a tour months ago. This one wasn't even out.
This fellow, as we were leaving, wanted to get a picture. He went and stood right next to that monument, aiming his camera that way, and got this one. Now, I've talked about orbs, I've kind of mentioned apparitions. This picture is one of the best examples of an apparition I have ever seen. I think you're all really going to enjoy seeing this. all of you, except for those people sitting on that bench.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah. The boy went there and he sat down on the bench.
Well,
and he said...
He told the tour guide, he was like, why should I be afraid of ghosts? He was like, if they're ghosts, they can't hurt me.
Right.
Why should I be afraid of ghosts? And so he sat on this one particular bench.
Was it his mom that was with him?
It was his mom that took the picture, and he sat on the bench that we were sitting on.
The tour guide pointed to us and said, I don't know if you guys are going to like this part of the story, but right behind where you're sitting, he said they took the picture, and he showed us the picture, and there was like a white light shadow something behind them in the trees, and I was trying to get the location, by the trees, and creepy, yes, but true.
What he said it was is he said it appeared to all their experts to look like a woman upside down. And
it was upside down too. Like sometimes she gets bored and she doesn't like to stand upright because when you hang.
If you were a ghost, would you be upright when you could be upside down?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I would be like sideways, just chilling on my back, floating around like I was swimming in a pool.
But it was a really creepy picture, I will admit. I'd never seen
I'm not saying any of the pictures aren't creepy. I just don't think they're real. I mean,
and I'd never seen that picture before.
It goes great with the stories. Like if I were to go on a camping trip and I could bring stuff like that with me and then pass them around, that would be awesome.
So that was probably my favorite part just because there was a lot of personal stories there. And of course we already knew about Lavinia Fisher because we had learned about her from the jail. But yeah, that was my favorite part of the tour, and I felt like the stories were... I like personal stories. I like ones that aren't quote legend. I like ones from random people on tours who have seen stuff.
Well, that was the history that I enjoyed, and also the next part that we're getting ready to tell you, which is Bloody Alley, or they had different names for it. He kept calling
it Philadelphia Avenue.
Is the name of the street. But they nicknamed it Bloody Avenue or dueling something.
Something like that, because that's where a bunch of duels.
That's where all the duels. Yeah, a lot of the duels would take place. He said.
Well, before we get onto that, how did you feel about the Lavinia stuff?
I enjoyed the history of it. I don't know. People on drugs probably saw these things and took off running.
I wish we had another night so that we could go back to the park at night. Maybe we'll go back and do that another time. Yeah. Now that we know where it is. Because I didn't know that that's where Lavinia was.
We could go back and just sleep on the park bench.
Killed. Sleep on the park bench.
You're right. I don't think so. I'm not a hobo.
But it was interesting. But yes, going on to Philadelphia Avenue, Bloody Alley, whatever. He told us about a story, or he told us a story rather, about a particular duel that had taken place in that alley. And if you're not familiar with what a duel is, he kind of recapped it for us. But basically, back in the 1800s, men, if they ever had disagreements, concerning politics, religion, family, anything, and it was something that couldn't be resolved, a lot of times they would have their friends try to resolve it for them. And if the friend said he won't agree, or she won't agree, or he doesn't agree, then they would have to do a formal duel.
It kind of reminded me of the whole honor thing in Asia. Certain countries, it depends. I guess China and
you have to defend your
Japan.
Honor.
You have to defend your honor. If your honor has been
besmirched,
besmirched, then you had to do something. Whether it was took your life to do it.
Right.
I always saw that as being the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Asian culture is very much.
But that's the same here. Dueling was the same thing. You're defending your honor.
And you have to remember, this is a time of patriotism, time of the Civil War, even the Revolutionary War as well. It's all about patriotism. So anyway, but what would happen is two guys would go in the corner, you'd have your seconds, and you'd meet face to face, turn around, walk 10 paces backwards, and then on the count of 3, you'd both turn around. And if you were
the way you just now said that, you walk 10 paces backwards sounds like you're walking backwards.
No, paces. it's like you walk.
You put back to back. You put your back to back to each other.
You're right to the nose to nose.
Oh,
and
you face each other
and
first.
And then you turn around.
And
then walk 10 paces back. And then 1, 2, 3, turn around with your guns. And a gentleman
will point his gun to the sky.
And shoot.
You're right. And I don't know what the point is of that. Like, I don't know why you would go through all the motions just to point your gun at the sky.
It's about your honor for the first part, and then the second part is about being a gentleman.
Yeah. But it just so happens in this particular story, I'm not going to tell the whole story, in this duel, one was a doctor and one was just a random town drunk.
No, he wasn't a town drunk. He was his friend.
Well, they were friends, but I remember in one version of the story, they talked about how he was a drunkard, like he was always at the bar and stuff like that. But he had been, embarrassed by the doctor. And there was a girl in it, and the doctor's waiting for his girlfriend to get there.
About his girl.
Amanda or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what happened is they turned, and the doctor shot to the sky, but the drunkard, we'll just say, shot the doctor.
His friend shot him. It's not a very good friend.
And so he shot him, and then the doctor died in the alley. But what was legendary about the doctor is that he would always whistle, and he had a very beautiful voice, and he'd always
voice
whistle.
Or whistle?
Well, generally, if you can whistle well, you have a good singing voice as well.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so
I thought whistling was just blowing through your lips, and
it is, but you have to carry.
It takes vocal cords.
It does have to carry melody, though.
Yeah, but that's just the way you move your lips, not your vocal cords.
Okay, agree, disagree. I don't know why we're like arguing about that. Anyway,
it's our thing. That's why people listen to us.
That's a pointless argument, though. Anyway, so
if you think that Natalie is right, no, I'm kidding.
Boy.
Keep going.
So anyway, the doctor died in the alley, and so a lot of people have said, particularly people that live like on the corners of that alley, and there's like houses on that street, will say that they'll be walking home alone and they'll hear like whistling behind them, like really pretty whistling, and that's pretty much all in that alley is that you're supposed to hear whistling, and a lot of duels. Just I remember we were on that part of the tour. There was a guy that was in like a whole dueling get up, and I guess there was like a historical
he looked like a
tour.
musketeer.
There was probably a history tour going on, and that was probably this is where all the duels used to take place.
See, we could have went on the history tour.
I wouldn't like that.
I know.
But,
luckily, we get some history in the tours that she likes, the ghost tours.
So, that was...
Then, the lady, like, he's telling the story,
this is the creepiest part of the whole tour.
He says something about Amanda, which is in the story, and this lady is walking down the alley, and he says, everybody move back, let this nice lady through like that. And then he starts to, his story up again. And as soon as he starts the story up,
she's like halfway down the alley.
Yeah, she's like halfway down the alley, like screaming at him. And I'll add the clip in there. We're not going to say what she says,
but she sounded like a psychopath, and she kept yelling at him. And the creepiest part was she would not turn around. Like she kept walking and screaming straight. Things.
But like I said, I recorded it.
They all thought she was drunk, and I looked at them. I looked at her eyes. She was not drunk.
She was not drunk. She was probably schizophrenic and just hearing voices and
something like that. But it was really weird, and the tour guide was like kind of weirded out by it too.
He says, "I don't know why she's so famous."
No, you know why I am.
What?
That was the ghost. Schizophrenia. Mental health. It's all right.
Well, that's the end of the tour. How about that for a dramatic ending?
That was probably
every now and then I think I would just like to just wander the streets at night with my video camera and just record what actually.
But anyway, those are like the main parts of the tour. Overall, if I had to rank it from 1 to 10 of the tours we've done in the past, I'd probably give it a 6, only because you can't control the humidity, obviously, because it was very humid.
It was a lot cooler than the jailhouse.
That's true, but it did get very humid towards the end, especially in the alley. Like, there was no wind at all. I did like the stories.
I need everybody to know that you are a little bit more...
I'm hot-natured.
Yes.
But, yeah.
So if you're hot-natured, that's what she says.
Yeah.
If you're not, then whatever I say. Because I didn't think it was too hot. Yes, I had a little bit of sweat, but it wasn't, crazy hot.
But the tour guide, he definitely knew his stuff. He knew his history. He wasn't as charismatic as I would have liked. He was a bit too serious for my taste.
I know, he's way too serious for me.
He wasn't like, I've had tour guides in the past who were more like jokey.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that. All right, we have a dog in the back seat going off, and probably because there's people walking around. This is harder to do. We're doing the thing where we're recording on the phone, like we said we were going to do. We got the idea from Glenn's Glenn Thinks Stuff, because I listened to one of his episodes, and he said that he started off his podcasts or all his episodes by recording on his phone, and then he got his microphone and all this stuff. But we decided, hey, we could do this recording on a phone, because we don't have all of our stuff down here with us. So, I think that the tour was interesting. I wouldn't rank it as high as the jail tour.
No, I would definitely, even though it was so miserable.
But you're ranking this a 6.
Yeah, I know. It was so miserably hot in the jail tour. However, I would still give the jail probably like an 8. Just because of like the environment itself was way creepier. You didn't have a lot of people walking around you. There wasn't as much walking, because that was another thing I really didn't like that much. Is like, I've done that tour 2 times in the past, and I've never walked that much when we did that. Like, he took us...
Okay, yes. The jail tour was a shorter walk, but it was hotter. And the graveyard tour was a long walk. Very long walk. It was at least an hour's worth of walking.
Yeah.
Because it was an hour and 45 minutes long, I think. And 45 minutes was standing. Like, the only sitting we did was whenever we were on the bench at where the gallows used to be.
But I still liked it.
Like, yeah, no, I enjoyed it.
I didn't dislike it at all. I felt like I got my money's worth. Like, I mean, I liked it.
Yeah.
I would, if you don't know anything about Charleston and you don't know any of the ghost or history behind it, I would definitely recommend doing this tour first. We did the Charleston jail tour because I was more familiar with Charleston. I knew about a lot of the stories. And going in the building itself is not something you can do just walking around outside. Like, you get to go in.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
But all in all, it was an interesting tour. I enjoyed it. I had a few laughs. Natalie would look at me funny.
I didn't scream or get scared.
She didn't scream or get scared, but I also didn't try to scare her. And it wasn't really that scary, to tell you the truth.
Because there were so many people walking around.
Right.
Like, that's the thing. That was why the jail was scarier, because like you were, it was pitch dark in there constantly, and like you never knew what was behind you or in front of you. It was almost like being in like a real haunted house when you did
exactly. That was a little bit more. I mean, not scary for me, but more fun for me, because I had fun scaring Natalie in the jailhouse. But this one, there was just so many people walking around. It's like we were walking around downtown Charleston. We could have been like shopping for all I knew. You know, like.
But again, it was still, if you've never done a tour, I would recommend doing that one first, because you do hear about all the basic scary stories. And like I said, every tour guide their tour is going to be different, because they have different people on the tours who have experienced things. They themselves have experienced different things. Supposedly, or if you're in Gerald's.
Thank you for adding that. Supposedly,
if you have the perspective of Gerald, you at least get to hear different stories.
Yes, I like that. I was able to hear the different stories,
other than the ones that I told him before, because I think I had mentioned the picture to you. I felt like I had.
You did. You said be prepared for a few things, because.
And like as he was telling us, if I was murmuring things in Gerald's ear, like right before
you'll hear it. I'll add some clips to this, and
I was like, I know this story, and I would tell it before he told it, and
yeah.
But see, that's why. But the majority of the time, I didn't have to do that, because it was all. And he did leave some things out.
Deep down, Natalie wants to quit being a teacher and be a tour guide for a ghost
I've
tour.
always wanted to do that. I could totally be a tour guide for Charleston at this point.
That's what she's going to do.
You never know.
All right, well, that's about it for the bonus ghost tour.
Our next episode is going to be another paranormal one where we're
creepy stories.
I'm so excited.
I know.
We're gonna listen to your creepy stories and react to them. And I'm not gonna let Gerald pull you down. I'm gonna fight for you.
Yeah, she's gonna be on your team, and obviously, I'm sorry, but if you send a creepy story in, I'm going to try to debunk it.
But like we did say, that it doesn't have to be paranormal. It could just be.
No, I said creepy story.
Remember my story?
Creepy doesn't have to be paranormal.
Remember my stories about the people jumping in front of my car? Like, that wasn't paranormal. That was just really creepy.
Yeah, that's what I was telling somebody on Twitter. They were like, does it have to be creepy? Or does it have to be paranormal? I'm like, no, it just has to be anything that's creepy happening. Because somebody said that they had some creepy things happening on Tinder, and I was like, well, that's Tinder.
Tinder can be creepy. But all in all, I'm really looking forward to that.
If you're on iTunes right now, give us 5 stars. Give us a review. If you don't like, typing up all the reviews, then just click the 5 stars. We'll be happy with that. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Mostly I'm on Twitter, but I do try to get on Facebook and Instagram, and also let you know when new episodes are coming out. That's pretty much it, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Our former caretaker, Jimmy, used to come by here most nights after midnight, and every now and then he would tell me that he could hear the sound of children playing and laughing somewhere out in the middle of the graveyard. He could never just quite find them.
Thanks for listening to Conspired on the Road.